Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining. We're going to give everyone just a few minutes to log on and we will go ahead and get started. Just as general housekeeping to everybody, if you can please select for best sound quality at the bottom of your screen, either English or Chinese channel. We do have our wonderful interpreter, Yanan, on with us again tonight. And in the chat, there is a translated version of our PowerPoint we'll be presenting tonight. Well, Mayor Talt will be presenting tonight. All right, I want to respect everybody's time. Welcome to our State of the City Town Hall. And without any further ado, a man who needs no introduction as he's been known, our Mayor Steve Talt. He will be presenting State of the City.
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you all for tuning in this evening for the State of our City. Before I start with the State of our City, I believe you will all join me in offering our prayers to all those mourning as a result of the criminal shooting of the patrons of the dance studio in Monterey Park. The loss of life taken by such a heinous act is devastating to so many, and we mourn with all of those impacted and pray not only for their families, but also for those that have been injured in this event. As I stated in a statement on Sunday morning, San Marino will provide whatever we can in aiding Monterey Park and Alhambra during this crucial period. And also I'm very familiar with the generosity of San Marino residents in situations like this. There have been GoFundMe, if you're interested, or have not done so already. There is several GoFundMe funds set up. You can go to GoFundMe.com, entering Monterey Park, and you'll see there are a variety of funds, both collectively and individually, that are available for donations. I also want to take a moment and offer a very generous thank you to our own San Marino resident, Brandon Say, for his heroic acts of disarming the gunman at his family's dance studio in Alhambra. Brandon saved lives while putting his own life at risk as he struggled with the killer intent on widening the circle of his victims. As with many throughout the San Gabriel Valley, and indeed well beyond, we are grateful, Brandon, for your acts. Thank you for your heroic bravery. Now to get to the state of our city, I bring some great news and some news that has been improving. We've had a burglary breakout recently in San Marino, including a home invasion robbery that you probably all are aware of. This home invasion lasted for a considerable amount of time and involved two residents in their home in San Marino. We've also had some other burglaries in town, but I'm pleased to announce that in the last week of reporting, we had no burglaries. Our police are doing what they can based upon what information they have garnered during the investigation. I've spoken to the chief and he will be taking what actions he can attempt to guard against more patrols, more flock cameras, other countywide resources, and including a greater presence this Saturday at the Chinese Club of San Marino's lunar event at the park. However, we also need cooperation from our residents. We have to harden our targets, and this last Thursday night, Chief Incontro provided, and the police department provided a very informative seminar on what we individually can do regarding our own residences to protect against any burglar or any attempted burglary. You can see that presentation on our website as you enter the website, go down below and you'll see it, and you'll also see the question and answer period, but that is available on our website. Now to the good news. We have two new members of our city council, Tony Cho and Calvin Lowe, or as I like to refer to them, as our complaint department. If you have any complaints, they're the ones to take them to. But they joined Stephen Wong, our vice mayor, and Gretchen Shepherd-Rami, Gretchen having successfully won her campaign in November. They will, that is the constitution of our city council. In 2 years, Stephen and I will be termed out. And if anyone is interested in taking a look at running for city council, now is the time to start by studying and perhaps volunteering for various opportunities throughout the city of San Marino, not only to help the city, but also get to know how it works, as well as get to know many people involved in this. I found well, financially, this city is very strong. And let me show you what we have done over the last several years. I find this slide of something that was done in 2018 when I was last mayor. And we had a task force in 2017 that was tasked on finding improvements in the administration of our city. And we engaged as volunteers, various members of our community, and asked them to review our administration of our departments, the administration department, as well as Parks and Public Work. And they came up with a series of ideas, many of which have been implemented in one fashion or another, some of which we are still working on, or are just not feasible. One of the suggestions they came up with was to create a new financial strategic planning committee. And that was made up of people in the finance world who live here in San Marino and were willing to volunteer their time to take a look at various ways in which we did business. They were tasked with exploring options on how to fund our deferred maintenance. At that point, all deferred maintenance was either paid out of our reserve or was paid out of our general funds. But we weren't necessarily setting money aside for our deferred maintenance, such as roads, sewers, our buildings, and so forth. So we asked them to find a way on how to fund our deferred maintenance. We asked them to determine an appropriate reserve policy. At that time in 2018, we did not have a very well thought out reserve policy. We just stuck money in that we didn't need for various other purposes in a reserve policy. And there was a substantial amount of funds in there. However, we asked them to determine what the appropriate reserve policy was so that funds that were not necessary for reserve could be used for other projects, including capital improvements. We asked them to review the existing investment policy, the 2008 investment policy, and make a determination as to whether or not within the confines of municipality investments, whether we could find a balance and ask them to develop a new investment policy. We also asked them to look for ways to improve our handling of the unfunded pension. The unfunded pension is that amounts that we will owe in the future that have not been funded through our regular payroll process. And so we asked them to take a look at ways of how we could improve finding the gap between the actual and the actually funded and the unfunded pension. Next slide, Nicole. Today, as a result of the work, we have a total cash investments of over $41 million. And this was as of the first week in January. This includes a reserve fund equal to 40% of our budget. And that was what these financial experts decided was the appropriate amount. There includes a capital improvement fund of over $17 million. And we created a special pension trust fund with, I believe that number's wrong, I believe it's closer to $1.5 million. So with reserves equal to 40% of our budget, it allows us various other options to use our money in a more wise way, and allows for more astute financial planning. And it also protects us against inflation. It protects us to a great degree concerning the ups and downs of an economy. And it ensures that this city can, if we had no funds coming in, could survive for a significant period of time. Now, the capital improvement fund of over $17 million, that's a bit not necessarily misleading. That's how much we have in there. But one of the problems that we have is capital projects are don't listen to the fiscal year too well. Capital improvements tend to go over a 1 or even a 2-year period. And so we have to rebudget. For example, if we have a project that started in November of one year and went past June of the next year, we have to re-budget or reallocate those funds in the next year's budget, just the way the budget works. And so that capital improvement fund may include funds we've committed in previous years that we will now rebudget. And the special pension trust fund is still with CalPERS, but the investment, because it's a special trust fund, allows us not to be as restricted as we might otherwise be in investing for the protection against the unfunded policy, the unfunded pension. Next slide, please. And the most important thing that we have is this year, we've now completed 4 straight years of a clean audit. That's important, especially when it comes to other financial institutions looking at the city, not only potential contractors, but also any bonds that we have or any other finance that we have. The fact that we've had 4 years of clean audits means that we are being completely transparent with our financial situation. And our city staff has been awarded for, I believe, the 5th or 4th straight year, an award based upon the budget and the auditing process. And we're very proud of the work that our financial department has done, and with the help of Annie Hahn, our treasurer, who has helped guide our investment policy. Next slide, Nicole. So as of December approximately 31st, this is how our financial picture at a snapshot of that time looked. Our last fiscal year, we had operating revenues of $30 million, almost $31 million. That operating revenue comes from a variety of sources, but the principal source is our property tax. There are other funds in there. There are the funds or the revenues generated through our building department, who receive licensing fees and permitting fees. There are some funds that we tap into that are allowed for various extra government projects. Presently, our operating revenues, or at least as the time that the slide was initially made, our operating revenues, and that is from July 1st to December 2022, was $12 million. Now, that number may be $18 million right now. The county was a little tardy in getting us approximately $8 million from our property taxes. So I'm hoping, and I did not check tonight, I'm hoping that number is upwards of $20 million here at the near the end of January. Our operating expenditures last year were $28.7 million. This year so far, we've spent approximately $15.5 million this fiscal year, I should say. And that is once again starting in July of last year. Those operating expenditures are a little high, but principally because we've had increased payroll that includes some back pay that was negotiated with the various units. And also the operating expenditures includes amounts that we've spent on our new city center. General operating fund balance, it's what we have in the bank right now. At the end of last fiscal year, we had the general operating fund balance was 17 million. At the end of December, it was 14 million. Our cash investment fund balance, and that's all the funds that we have, including the CIP, the reserve fund, the general operating fund, and other smaller funds, is presently $41 million. And according to our finance department, that is it was upwards of $44 million at one time at the beginning of this, or in the middle of this fiscal year, I should say. I think it was around, or maybe it was the end of last fiscal year, it was around May of 2020, we had $44 million, and that's the highest that it's ever been. So we're very proud of that. Our CIP fund balance, as I mentioned earlier, at the beginning of this year, it was 18.8 million. It's presently $17.2 million. And the total actual spent this year on CIP is $2.2 million. Now, CIP, once again, is the capital investment fund and projects, and that includes projects like the city center, and also the roads and maintenance of the buildings and maintenance of our sewer system and our drainage system here in the city. Next slide, please. 2022, 2023, what have we budgeted for? That includes the budget. That is a substantial document, which you could probably get online. If not, it's available here at City Hall. But we anticipate revenues to be $36.7 million. Now, that's higher than normal, primarily because it includes a one-time American Rescue Plan payment, which was the COVID payment by the federal government of $3 million. So those revenues, aside from that, are about $33.7 million. Our expenses we anticipate to be $31.2 million this year. And we anticipate spending approximately $10 million in the capital improvement area. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that's a little difficult to assess because that is during this fiscal year. And while we budget for various capital expenses throughout a fiscal year, many times because of weather or that a project is not completed within a fiscal year, that has to carry over. So while that $10 million includes the rebudgeting of items that were not completed in the last fiscal year, as well as projects we anticipate being started in this year. Next slide, please. What do we do with the surplus? As I mentioned earlier, last year, I believe our surplus was approximately $30 million. We have to decide what to do with that. And we have not decided what to do with that this year, but there are various options. And per financial policy, it goes to first to make sure that our reserve does not fall below 40%. So we will look at what our budget is, and we will look at the reserve at the time and make a determination if the reserve per our financial policy is above 40%. If it's not, then all or part of the surplus will go to rebalance that amount. If there are funds left over, it either goes to our capital, it should be CIP, I apologize. fund, which would ensure against having funds available for future capital projects. Or it could go to the pension trust fund. That decision will be made here in the future. I do not recall the date, but it will be made soon. But those are our three options. These options are always nice to have because our reserve is healthy now, our CIP is healthy now, and our pension trust fund is probably where it should be. So we'll have to make that decision, and it gives us plenty of options. Next slide, please. What's ahead for 2023? First of all, we have to find a new city manager. Don't jump ahead yet, Nicole, because I want to talk about this for a second. Presently, Mario Rueda is our acting city manager. We anticipate going through the process and finding a new city manager in either June or July of this year. The process is not an easy one. It's not one that we take lightly, but it involves hiring a recruiter, which we've hired. The recruiter then meets with the city council members, which she has, and various staff members, which she has. She will then reach out to the city, and there's a questionnaire that's going out, a survey, which will ask you as residents what you're looking for in a new city manager, what you believe is important. There will also be a citywide forum to have an opportunity to meet with the recruiter in person and express any ideas. We want to hear what you have to offer in finding a new city manager, what expertise they might have, the personality type to manage a city hall in a city such as San Marino. So please participate. If you see the survey, fill it out, and if you're available, please come to the meeting. They're not scheduled yet. We anticipate this occurring at the end of this month, with meetings next month. After we collect all the information, we will go out with that information to various active groups and post the job. Then we will eventually identify a couple of candidates, interview them, and then make the decision. If we don't find anybody during that process, I know Mario doesn't like me saying this, but we could always go out again. So, but we're very helpful. We're very hopeful as to finding a new city manager by the middle of this calendar year. Next. We need to finish the San Marino Community Center. The San Marino Community Center is well on its way. We anticipate it being finished by July 3rd, although with the weather being as difficult, I don't know if that put us behind, but I know they're working hard on the community center, and we hope to have it open by the 4th. And the community center will not only have dining opportunities, but it'll have a special fireside room for smaller meetings, larger meetings to be held in the main auditorium. The stage is not changed. There is now going to be a different kitchen, and our recreation department will move there. There's also going to be a kind of a joining of the library and the community center, so there'll be more open space for outdoor events. But we're very proud of it, and various community members worked very hard in putting together the plans. And now we're hard at work at implementing those plans. What to do with Stoneman? Nicole, you jumped ahead on me. What to do with Stoneman? Stoneman is owned by the city. We purchased it from the school district many years ago. And at the time we purchased it, there was no plan on what to do with it. The recreation or the community services department has been headquartered there. But the building is old and in need of repair. We are conducting repairs to maintain it from being safe. But in the end, what will we do with Stoneman? Whether or not we still need that asset, how do we protect the historic elements of that asset? if we don't need it, and what to do with it upon the completion and the move in to the new San Marino Center. And we've been kicking this can down the road, and I'm hopeful that during my term, we're able to come up with a solution for Stonewall. Now, Nicole, we need the certification of the housing element. Those that are not familiar with what a housing element is every 8 years or 4 years, if you have not had your housing element certified in the state, we have to provide a document to the state housing department, indicating what we're doing with respect to zoning and housing in the city of San Marino. We had for the first time ever, we had our housing element certified 4 years ago, but as a result of various new laws that have been placed, we were required to have a new housing element this year. We have filed our housing element, which we believe fits all of the requirements. However, the state has yet to certify it, and in fact came back to us saying that it is not adequate. We believe it's adequate. We are dealing with them. The housing element is a very important document that we must abide by, especially given all the, I'm going to be careful with what I say, but all the new rules that have come about with from the state in the last 2 years, 3 years, including requiring the city of San Marino to come up with plans for an additional 300 plus housing units. What happened was in Southern California, there was an allotment that Southern California groups, Los Angeles County had to come up with a substantial amount of new housing units. The local organization then allots those units to the various cities, and they initially allotted San Marino somewhere in the neighborhood of 700 units. We were able to get that down originally to 300 units. So what we have to do, and what we believe we've adequately done with the housing element, is identified within our city areas where additional areas that can be zoned for residential housing that would increase the allotment of San Marino. Doesn't mean that people have to build on these. We just have to identify these areas and then potentially zone for these areas. It's been a very difficult and, quite frankly, unhappy and sad event to see the state come down hard on cities like San Marino, which historically for over 100 years have been a single family unit, but we plan on getting a certification of housing element that is done that will keep our history in mind. But that is a continuing process. We're not the only one that is dealing with this issue. There are, I believe, hundreds of cities in the state of California who are yet to have their housing element certified because of the changes in the massive allotment of housing units. Next, please. We have to plan for our vacancy issue. As many of you may recall, in November, we put out a new vacancy tax on parcels for homes that remain vacant and unused for, I believe it was 200 days in a year. It did not pass, although it did get the majority of voters. The vacancy issue, however, even with not, just because it didn't pass, did not mean the vacant issue went away. So we're looking at alternative ways to deal with this vacancy issue. It's a vacancy issue costs us all. It's a matter of safety. Vacant homes in the past have been used by criminals. It happened over in the Mission District. Fortunately, we were able to find it, but a vacant home was a place where several people met and stayed, and then without the consent of anyone, and then went out and burglarized local homes, stole bikes, and so forth. So the vacancy issue does not go away. It's also important for the well-being of our city. The look, a lot of times vacancy houses, and certainly not all the case, but vacant homes are left unkempt, and so they become a blight on a neighborhood. It also costs us in residents, and it costs our schools, because a vacant home means that an empty seat at school, or an empty sales tax at Julienne's, or at any of the other fine establishments here in the city. So we're going to look for a new way to deal with the vacancy issue. Next. This is, before I get to the rebuild a sense of community, I do feel it's important for one thing that kind of goes with this, but also goes with a variety of other issues. And that is, we will be sending out, we haven't decided exactly what's going to go on it yet, but we're going to be sending out a newsletter or a letter to residents reminding them of what is legal and not legal in and around your home. In my many sojourns in the city, I note that people may not know that you cannot post a sign on the grass area in between the sidewalk and the city, or pardon me, the city streets, without the permission of the city. And oftentimes I will see signs there that is actually owned by the city. And we ask people not to do it. You could, if it's political or religious in nature, you could obviously do it on your own property. But we encourage people not to do that. But people may not know. People may not know that it is against our rules and regulations to post signs on our lampposts in the city trees. And often I will see, understandably, people looking for help finding a cat or a dog. And if you were to do something like that, we encourage you not to, in the first instance, go door to door if you can, or find a website that lists those. But the damage that does to the trees at times, and the litter, and some of those signs remain up for 6 months and are not proper. Some people have signs placed on city property for open houses. That's not legal. You can put the open house outside your own home, but you can't put it on the corner. But people don't necessarily know these rules, and so we are going to be pushing out to the city a list of these rules so that people know about them, and then begin enforcing them more specifically. The final element is really what I'm going to spend a lot of time focusing on that, and that's rebuilding a sense of community. That goes into enforcing the various ordinances that we have that protect neighborhoods and protect our communities. But it also means much more than that. Through no fault of anyone, throughout COVID, people became more insular, especially in their homes. And it's hard to break out from that. And so I want to rebuild the sense of community, because it has effect. You're not out in the public, possibly, or you're not out walking because you're afraid of COVID, and that's understandable. But as COVID begins to dissipate, and by no means is it over, I want to get people out in our community with safety. And so the city is going to be concentrating, or not concentrating, but focusing on various events to get people together. And that includes some old events like our 4th of July event, our Home for the Holidays event that we have, which was, by the way, fabulous, encouraging people to go to the Chinese Club Lunar Celebration this Saturday at Lacey Park. But also we're going to have having a special 75th year celebration of the anniversary of our fire department, which turns 75 years old this year. But events like that, and you'll notice that that, get people into our library, get people into our recreation department programs, and offer what people want, and to make people feel comfortable. And I just want to encourage people to go out and get a sense of their neighborhood. Walk your dog as often as possible. Talk with your neighbors, who often are the first sense of security. If you know your neighbors, you know who should be in your neighborhood. So get out. You know your neighbors, and if you don't see them, there may be a problem, and it's also a health issue. So please, focus on maybe having a neighborhood function, or join your neighborhood watch group, or start one of your own, so that you get to know and rebuild that sense of community. Because for me, the sense of community is what I adore about San Marino. Being able to go out on a walk and see people that I know and chat with them, or go to an event and celebrate something. So we're going to be focusing on that, encouraging people to get out on the city. If you give me a minute, let me. Oh, there's also other events. Obviously, we have the police night out. We'll have our concerts in the park, which are other events that people get to. And there will be some special events that we will be celebrating, including events that have been recommended by our DEI task force, which met and came up with recommendations last year. I also want to encourage people as a rebuild the sense of community. And I know that our recreation department, our community service department, as we call it now, are going to be focusing also is when we on our senior events. And there are many senior events that occur, but there are also some local senior events that we can have. And that is, San Marino has a wide variety of talent in our schools. And there are musicals, there are musical productions, there are both our high school and our middle school. And I encourage you to attend those, because they're a wonderful way not only to see members of your community, but to have an enjoyable night out. And I'm going to encourage also our recreation department to make these events possible, so they're tie-in with our schools. And to coordinate all of that, I've asked our staff to put together, they do a great job on getting things out on social media, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, and matters like that. They push those ideas out, but not everybody is on Facebook. Not everybody is on Instagram. Not everybody has or uses social media. So we are going to go old school and create a community calendar where people will be able to see the events that are happening in our community. And I'm going to be we'll be asking the schools to, in the various service clubs and the various religious organizations, to join us in this community calendar, so that people will have an idea of the events, not only knowing when events are occurring, but also knowing so that they don't overlap. And we ask, if you're on board with us right now, or if you're watching this later and you're a member of an organization that has community events, we will be reaching out to you to develop this community-wide calendar and have you involved in it. And then we'll find a way to push it out to those in our community. Next slide. Well, thank you for spending a moment or two with me this evening. We have some time for questions. Nicole, there you are. Thank you, Nicole, also for spending your time this evening and helping me get out the message to our residents of the city of San Marino. And you probably have a means, or know the means by which people could ask me questions.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. There is a Q&A box available at the bottom of your screen. We will be taking Q&A. I'll give you a moment to type in any, and then I can read them off to our mayor. But thank you again for all joining us. And we'll wait for any questions. Please use the Q&A box, as it is easier for us to manage questions in writing. Not seeing any questions.
Should I sing then? Maybe put on my own musical production?
We could. Oh, okay. We have one question here. Are we considering upping SMPD patrol to address the huge surge in crime?
Chief Encontre talks about that in his presentation that's online. But yet one of the avenues that he is considering is increasing the visibility of our police force out and getting them, and that may include using our black and whites, for lack of a better term, with lights on during their patrol, just to be more visible. But it's my understanding that he is seeking to do so. But I think he answers that question specifically in his presentation, which is available online.
Thank you, Mayor. And we have one more right now. Any idea on when Huntington Drive will be repaved? It is crowning pretty bad, especially in the areas around Oak Knoll. As
part of our handling of projects in town, we and specifically as it relates to the streets, because I get asked this question often, is what we did is they did an assessment of all our roads. This was, I believe, 2 years ago. And as part of that assessment, the idea was to spend several years bringing our roads up to a certain level so that we didn't have to make major repairs. We thereby reduce the cost by scheduling it out and just being able to maintain as opposed to redo them entirely. But this schedule calendar out when we will do the roads. We can't do all the roads at one time. You'll notice that, especially during the summer, we're off doing those roads. And that is it's a schedule. I don't know, to answer specifically, when that will be done. But I do know that certain roads are part of our summer project. I just don't know if that one's done. But if you do find a problem with the road, and want to encourage us to put it higher on the list, you could always email our Public Works Department. That email is available on our website, and Amber Shaw, our new Public Works Director, may be able to provide a response.
Thank you, Mayor. We have another one. I have my own thoughts on this, but I will let you share yours first. Will there be an open forum or town hall to ask community members about the future use and project for Stoneman?
I would imagine. It is such an important part of the community that it would be. There is going to be an we will discuss it at minimum at a city council meeting, and if being that open forum. But I also do believe that during this process we will seek input from the council in a town hall. I can't guarantee that because I don't know the timing of all this at this point, but it's something that will be encouraged.
Excellent. Next question is, when will the job requisition be posted for the city manager?
You know, I believe that we're looking to post it in April. I don't, it may be before that, but it'll be open for a while. We still have to get to what we're looking to before we can post it. And I believe that we will complete that part of it in late February, early March. and then put the information out probably in mid to late March. That all depends upon when we're able to get together with and put this information together. But those are our plans. That those dates may slide, but I know what our end term looks like, and that is we'd like to find one by June or July.
All right, last question I have in the queue as of now. Can the city help improve internet services by building infrastructure in San Marino, considering the shift to home offices?
Well, I will tell you this. This is a very difficult question because pursuant to the federal laws, and we have no control over whether or not AT&T or Spectrum puts in fiber optics. And fiber optics, it is available in the northeastern part of our city. I believe that AT&T ran some lines down there. We don't have control. That the decision as to whether when to increase and improve that is left exclusively to these utility franchisors. Now, I had a discussion last year with a person who had helped put together the city itself running its own internet service, and that is just cost prohibitive. It would cost upwards of $30 to $50 million to take over and put together its own internet service, and that's just cost prohibitive. But the only suggestion I have is that if you're having a bad internet service, that you continue to complain to your service provider. We do complain to the utility providers, especially concerning the cell coverage in town. However, it's their decision on where to place a cell, not tower, but any cell coverage increase. It's up to them. So we continue to work with our utility providers to encourage them to do that, but the final decision is theirs.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have any questions in the queue at the moment. We'll give everyone just a minute. And I do want to remind everyone that if you had a neighbor who wasn't able to join us tonight, that this recording will also be available in English and Chinese on our town hall page and on the homepage of the city website. And I'm not seeing any other questions. If you do have any further questions, you're always welcome to email citymanageroffice@cityofsanmarino.org, and we would be delighted to pass your information over to them, or your question over to the mayor, or try to answer it ourselves. But at this time, I don't see any other questions. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you once again, Nicole, and thank you for the participants. And if you have any further questions, you could, my email or any of the city council email is available, as well as that of staff on our website. I don't always check my emails, as Nicole will probably attest to, because I'm a volunteer, as are the rest of us, and sometimes business takes precedent. But go ahead and email me, and I will try to respond, or if I can't respond, I'll pass it on to someone who may have the answer. But thank you for coming out. And don't forget to check Chief Incontro's presentation last Thursday.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.